You are already familiar what is a JSP, and you have at least experience. So when you have just realized, when you start working with it, when you look at it for the first time, it becomes too much. A lot of things are there, but as you start working with it, you realize that it is nothing. It's a routine thing that you have to follow. Okay, so that's why I'm more interested in the practical part of it. When you do it, you learn more. If you listen, you will forget. Okay, so there's no fun in listening to what is going on and other. You have to have some theory, then you have to practice. As you practice, you get more and more idea. Okay. So let's look at the JSP. How does the JSP work? As a developer, you create a JSP file. Either use a NetBeans or use any ID, the Notepad or anything. VI editor will also allow you to do it. Because what is a JSP page after all? JSP is a ordinary text. It is interpreted in different way. What is your Java that you are creating? You can use the Notepad to create it. You can even use a VI editor to create that. It's just a text file. It has to be compiled and it is going to become a .class file. So similarly, you create a JSP file. That JSP file will not cannot be directly used. What is being done? When you want to execute that JSP page, the first thing that the server will do is, that is during the compilation, the first thing that it does is it translates your JSP page into a servlet source code. So there is a translator, it goes to every line that you have written, and that line it transfers into a Java class. That is done automatically, you don't have to do anything. So when you say run your program, automatically your code is converted into a Java class, and then once you have .java file, you know very well, you have to compile it down to make it as .class file, and once you have .class file, you have to run it on a Java runtime environment, and it produces the output. And I've already told you, the output is not directly sent to the user, it is buffered. So text that is sent is buffered in some area, and when the buffer is full, it is sent back to someone else. So this is for the first time. Once this file has been created, it will not destroy that file. Every now and then it will not transfer your JSP into a Java file and then again compile it to a class file. It's going to take a lot of time. So when the second request arrives, so this is for the first request, that's the very first request when a new page has been created and the first time somebody makes the request. For the second time, if the same page is created, because it already has that class file, it will not again and again recompile your code. For the second time, it just takes this Java class, runs it, and then gives the output. What's the advantage? For the first request, there is going to be slightly more time that is involved because it has to convert your Java JSP file into a class file. So some time is required. For the second request, it's just a execution time. So there is a time, you can save some time in the execution. That's really important because we are talking about a web application, and in the web application what is happening is we are not having only one person who is requesting. There are millions of people who are requesting for the page. So if you take a Yahoo, at this time there will be millions of people, not only from India, from China and from all the other countries. So even if you are able to save a microsecond, it is a plus point because you have to serve millions of users at a time. So this is why the logic has to be very quick. Okay? So if you make a change to the page again, if you modify the page, the same thing will repeat again. So unless you modify the page, if the class file is there and nothing has been changed, then the same class file is run and you get the output. Now what about the life cycle of JSP? JSP follows the same life cycle as that of the servlet. Why it has to follow the same life cycle of a servlet? Because after all, JSP page as it is not run. It's the servlet, the equivalent servlet is executed. So if a JSP ultimately gets converted into a servlet, and it's a servlet, it's a class that is getting run, and if it is a servlet, and naturally it has to follow the same life cycle. You can't have a servlet that follows one other life cycle, or one more servlet that follows something else, then it's going to be a mess. So here what we have a init, we have a destroy, we have a underscore service. Now you may say that this method is not matching there. Now I am talking from the JSP. If you want to access this service method within the JSP file, you can anytime get these methods. They are readily available. You don't have to go to servlet and do that thing. These methods are directly available to you, and you can anytime make the changes. Now let's come back to the some of the elements that are used in the JSP. By now you are already familiar with these things. The first one that we are using is the expression. And what is an expression? Anything that needs to be evaluated. So 1 plus 1, the answer is 2. That's an expression. Okay. If you want something to be evaluated and has to be given up, then we use the expression. Then we have a scriptlet. What is a scriptlet? A small piece of Java code that you need to run. For example, a for loop, a while loop, a if, a switch statement, or any small calculation. If you want to do it, you can go for this. Then we have, look at the symbol here, it is percentage, and it is ending with the percentage greater than angle bracket. What's the difference between an expression and the scriptlet? There is a equal sign. Okay, so you have to put an equal sign in front of it, then it becomes an expression. If it is not, it's just a scriptlet. Okay. The next one is the declaration. What is the meaning of saying declaration? You have created a function. Okay. If you want to create your own function, for example, if you want to write a factorial function inside the page, then you have to declare it like this, not inside the other. What is the reason? Whenever you use this, whenever you use a declaration like this, okay, and if you write a statement, if and dash dash dash, okay, let's see, and something you have written, okay, this part, this is what is this is called as, this symbol is called as, it's a scriptlet. Okay, scriptlet, remember you have written it in the JSP. I'm talking about JSP. You have written something in the JSP. Okay, this scriptlet, during, remember that JSP page will be converted into an equivalent servlet. So whatever you write here inside that, it will go within this service method. So during the translation from your JSP to the Java, this part will come inside the service method. Remember, this is a method, so it goes inside the method. If you write an if statement, and if it goes inside it's a function, whatever you call it as, method or function. So if it goes inside a function, it's alright. If you write a while loop, it goes inside a function, it's alright. Suppose if you write a declaration, like if you write, say, public, and say, I will write it in the next line, or say public void add, and if you write a function, in that case what will happen? This is a function. That function will go inside one more function. Can you have that kind of things? In Java, we don't have a function. You can't write a function inside function. You can write a class inside other class. It's allowed. But you can't have a function inside function. No language will allow you to do that thing. So if you declare a function inside scriptlet, what will happen is, during the translation, whatever you write within this symbol, wherever you have written, entire thing will go inside a function. So if you have one more function there, that thing also will go inside that function, and the Java just breaks up and says, I can't do this. I have not thought, nobody has taught me how to execute a program in which one function has one more function and tomorrow 10 more functions will be there. You can't have a function inside there, one more function, inside there, one more function. It is not possible. One function, two function, three function, every functions are separate. So you open and close bracket, inside that function you do anything, that's up to you. Okay, so that's the reason it is not possible to have a function declaration inside that. Suppose if you want to have a function declaration, then how do we do it? You have to do it in the declaration tag. That the declaration tag is this. Let's go to the next one, and the next one is the directive. You are directing. Okay, so you are telling the JSP engine, this is how you are supposed to do the work. What is the meaning of this is how you are supposed to do it? You are telling the JSP that during the compilation include some other files. So that include statement, or use this language, use this locale. Locale is the country. Okay, why do I say a country? You know very well, we are targeting many people. Anybody from across the world can come and access your page. And if you want to attract customer, then you have to provide the your pages in their language. So if somebody is able to provide it in Kannada, Tamil, or if you go to Google, you might have noticed that there is an option to change the Google search in different languages. So if you want that kind of facility, what you are supposed to do it, you have to tell the compilation, during the compilation you have to tell, include the languages, include the additional information. That is what is provided by the directive. We will see that things like you later. The next one is the action tags. Action tags, the name itself says, they either help you to add additional components like plugin, or include additional pages into the existing page, or activate some other components. So they help you to perform some actions which are not, when you write a if statement, this is also an action, but when you try to instantiate a class and make it work, it is much better than what you have. Okay. So let's look at the other important tag, that is the comment. So in JSP, the comments are written like this: dash dash, and it must end with dash dash and the usual symbols. Okay. Whereas if you take the HTML, HTML also has a comment, and the comment in HTML are written like this. So if you have a comment in HTML, why do you have to write the comment in JSP? What's the reason? Remember, this thing will be converted. This is a JSP tag. Whatever that is there in the JSP will be converted into a servlet. In other words, it will be converted into a Java file. And you know very well, Java does not care about your comments. Whatever comments you add, during the translation, those comments are just pulled out. So those comments are not taken into the source code. If they are not taken into the source code, that means it will not go to the client side. So if you look at an example over here, we have a comment that is written in regular HTML and the comment that is written in the Java. So when this code gets executed, finally when this code gets executed, what the client will say is the HTML tag. The HTML comments will go to the client place because it's a plain HTML. HTML comments are taken as comment, and as it is, those comments are even given to the client side. But the JSP comments are treated like a Java comment, and you know very well, during the compilation, comments are pulled out and they don't reach the client. So what is so great about it? Suppose if you are commenting out something, how the process has to work, or some logic regarding your program, do not comment them as a regular HTML comments, because that piece, if not today, will go to a client place, and if the client is a bit intelligent, then they may start reading your page. So you know very well, right click and view the source code, it will show you the HTML source. Then they will get the hidden information. For example, if you have written a password, so if you want to comment out, this is the password to get connected to the database, and if you want to write that as a comment, write it like a JSP comment because it will not reach to the client place. If you put a comment in the HTML form, and if you then compare it, that comment, even though it is not shown to the user, the comment is reaching the client place. Anytime the client can come back and then attack your server. Okay. The other one is the built-in variables. In the last class, we have seen, or maybe in the last or previous, that we have already seen that there is in the JSP, you automatically get a implicit class called as a request class. It automatically comes to you. You don't have to declare anything. It is part of it. Similarly, you get one more class called as a response class, so it doesn't make a lot of difference to you. There is the other one, that is the session, and in the previous class I told you what is a session, and I told you how to handle a session in one of the way. The best way to handle the session is to create a object, session object, because we are talking about object oriented programming. Naturally we are only dealing with the objects, not a crude way of handling the comments. Okay, we'll see this session in a greater depth because it's required throughout. Almost all frameworks make use of it. We also get the out object, so you don't have to derive an out object and get it, even though in the servlet we are supposed to do it. You are not doing it, you never bother to do it, because that part deriving the out from the response was automatically written for you by the NetBeans. So when you wrote the NetBeans syntax, it automatically created this part for you. So out object was available. It derived that out object from the response object, and it gave it a simple template to you, and we were using that. But it's not true in reality. Okay. So this is how we write it. We have seen one of the example. Let's look at some example. I will quickly go through it because. So I have a page here, and there's nothing much I can do. So we have a ordinary JSP page. We start with the first one. So what's the first one that you have learned? The first one that you have learned is this one. Okay, so can I write 4 plus 5 here? Is it valid? Is it valid? Okay, so let's run it and see. So I have an expression, say whether it executes that expression. I think this is a theory class, so I will slightly go ahead with it. Let's go for the scriptlet which you have already added. Let me write the declaration. How do you write a declaration? I have a declaration. So let's write a declaration. So public, it returns int at, it takes 2 parameters, int a, int b, and it's going to return a plus b. That's a function. How do I call that function? Okay. So let's say int x is equal to at Okay, you get that. I think this is not magic, it is from the NetBeans. Okay, and I have the implicit object outdoor print line. Oops, I will use the print line again. You can use the print. Next. Just to differentiate between these two, I'm going to put a break here so that they will come into two lines. Let me go over here and let me refresh it. You notice that I'm showing you both of them, and the first one is 9 because of 5 plus 4. The second one happens to be, okay, say that. Okay. So you have 6 plus, okay, ignore that. I'm going to tell you how to add two numbers. So you get that. Okay. You can use it anyway, so it is not that you are supposed to use a scriptlet here and the declaration there. Anywhere you can use it. It doesn't make much difference if you write the scriptlet first and the functions later. So anywhere you want, you can do it. What could be the result of this? What could be the result of this? If you write new and instantiate a date, what are you going to get? What it returns? System date, okay, so current date. There is a other way in which you can write the expression. So this, you can write the expression like this, or you can use JSP colon expression and write your expression. So this is the other way in which you can write it. Okay. I'm not going to waste my time on that. There is a example wherein I have a scriptlet, you have a if statement, and you have a else statement. What's the difference between them? I'm not going to run it and show it because it's going to take more time. What's the difference here? You notice that you have the if that is starting here. In between you have a ordinary HTML or ordinary text, and it continues. So you can mix the Java and the HTML in any order you want. Okay? It's not just one line, you can have more than one line, and you have already seen that thing in the lab. So you can mix the HTML as well as Java. So half the part is HTML, the other half is JSP or the Java, or mixing them together. It works fine. And let's look at the declaration code. This is an example. I think I have an example for the finding the factorial. So you have a factorial here that is declared. N is equal to, this is ordinary factorial, and this is written using the declaration. Here we have a for loop. So for I is equal to 5, you show the output. See, what is this here? The for loop stops at this point. Then we have a plain text. We have a expression. We have one more expression, a call to the function which was declared, and the date. So anything you can mix them. You can clutter them in any order you want, provided the syntax are proper. Okay. Let's come to that directives. What are these directives and why they are required? They are used to send an information to the container, how to treat them. So the general syntax for the directives are %@ followed by the name of the directives and the parameters which are sent in the form of key value pair. So key corresponding to that a value. So how many directives we have? Fortunately we have these many directives. The one directive is page. So you get at page or content type include taglet. So we get different types of it. It's not one. So you can have at page or at taglet or at include, anything can come there, followed by some key value pair. Okay, let's look at the page directive. So if you write at page, what are the options that you get and why do you have to use it? First of all, the at page directive. So if you didn't get that thing, it means to say that, remember, the directives is already one directive is there right at the top, whether you've seen it or not. This is how we write it: at page followed by some key value here. Okay, there. Oops. So what are the other possibilities are there? So at page, buffering, session, import, the programming language, and the required locale. So these many options are there. After that, at page, you can specify the buffering. What is the meaning of saying buffering? I have already told you the output is not directly sent to the client, it is buffer. So what is the size of the buffer? How much buffer you require for this page? You can specify that. Okay, so if you want, you can specify that. The next one is the session. Even though you are not familiar with that session object as such, but you are familiar with what is the concept behind that session, the continuous interaction. And in the last lab, you have taken the pain of handling the session on your own. Instead of that, you can just tell the JSP engine itself, take care of this session. Don't bother me. If the same person is coming back, take care of that person. So that's not part of my business. My logic or my problem is to just solve how to find the factorial. I only bother about how to, what I know only the logic how to find the factorial. What is the session? If the client is coming again and again, that's all your problem. You take care of it. That is, if you want to specify that instruction to the server, then you have to use that session. I'll tell you how to use that session. The next one is importing the classes. For example, I just shown you the date, java.utility.date or java.utility.random or math.add subtract. If you want to import other packages for your work, you can specify them. The other one is the programming language that you are using. As of now, there is only one programming language that is used, and that is the Java. So, when they started, they thought, okay, they will incorporate other programming language, but it has not happened as of now. So, if in future, if it is possible, you can change the language and say that programming language is Ruby. Then it will compile according to. If in future, please don't expect that it's Ruby is the proper one. Just to tell you that some other language which you are not heard of. So I'm saying that. So I didn't say C. Then you will say that C can't be embedded inside the a page. It's not possible. So I'm giving you one name, a random name, which is not actually proper. The other one is the use the locale, and I think I've already told you what is the locale, a country specific information. Use this instruction. For example, we have at page language is Java. Session is true. That means handle the session. If you say session is false, don't worry about this session. Okay. Then you can say at page import AWT or utility. The other one that is not shown there is thread safe is true or false. What's the meaning of saying thread safe? What is the meaning of saying thread safe? Something is thread safe. What does that mean to you? Somebody says it is thread safe. What does that mean to you? What is the problem of threads? That's one problem with the threads. What is one problem that you encounter with the thread? Yes? Synchronization. So what is it? When does the problem of synchronization will be? Huh? Multiple threads are running. That's when the problem comes. Okay, and I'm very sure you have heard that problem in your databases. Dirty read. Have you heard that problem? Dirty read. Okay, what is the meaning of saying dirty read? Okay, so assume that you have a variable x and two programs or two threads are reading it. So let me assume the value here is 10. So we have the thread T1 is reading and thread T2 is also reading. There are one more thread is there. Okay. So both of them have the 10. I'll come back to this problem T2 later. This reads it as 10. So you have a try here and somewhere you have a catch. And what that catch does is this catch does rollback. Are you familiar with the word rollback? Okay. If there is an exception, it rolls back. Now assume that it has read this value x. Here it's going to add x is equal to x plus small case x plus 10, and there are some lines of text are there. So it is reading. So when x is equal to x plus 10, what will happen? What's the value of this now? So isn't that it's going to write back. So what's the value here now? So it's going to be, what's the new value of this is 20. Last value plus 10 is 20. Now it's executing. Assume that now this is not 10, it is 20 now. It has been overridden. Assume that one more thread starts reading it. So you have a thread T3 reads it and it is doing some work. But unfortunately, at this line, there is an exception. And when there is an exception, what happens? There is going to be a rollback. So what is the rollback? Rollback will pull out whatever changes it has made and keep this value as 10. Now what happened? What happened to T3? T3 assume that it is 20 and it is still continuing. So this is the problem with the thread. When you allow more than one thread to read the same value simultaneously, then one of them, say it is, you are starting all the threads one after the other, so it is coming one after the other. Everybody has started reading and everybody is doing some or other changes. If one of them goes up, then the others will think that the same value is there. They don't come back and then they don't repeat their work. Okay. So if you are not careful, what will happen is you end up in giving a wrong values to multiple threads. So you have to synchronize. You have studied this semaphore and all the other ideas even in the operating system. You have to lock the critical work or the critical part, whatever you say, and allow one of them to complete and block the other. So in other words, there are some things which can be done simultaneously by more than one threads. So if that kind of situation is there, if you feel that your code is doing that, then you have to tell the compiler, or you have to tell the container that do not allow more than one thread to simultaneously access this page. Halt them, because if more than one threads are accessing it, in other words, more than one client is accessing it, it may end up in unexpected problems. So if you want to handle that thing, you can just tell thread safe is true. Now you are saying thread safe is false. What's the advantage of saying thread safe is true? Only one thread is executed and you are damn sure that you won't end up in the problems of like dirty read and all the others problems, all the four scenarios. What's the bad part of it? Bad part of it is only one thread is allowed. That means if 10 clients are requesting for the page, one of them is given the page, others have to wait until one goes on. Okay, that's bad. So you get the performance hit or the scalability comes down with the synchronization. Okay. The next one is error page URL. Sometime if you go to a website like Microsoft or Intel or any other good website, I'm not saying Microsoft is using the JSP, but if you go to their website and if there is a error, you find that it shows the error in a formatted page. It just don't dump the all the exception that you get in your lab when you do an program, and if the program is not proper, then and there it shows so many lines of codes. You don't see that thing. You see a very neat page. That's a separate page. So what you can do is, I will continue with this. Okay. What you can do is you can generate a separate page, and if you can tell the container that if there is an error in any of the page, this is the template. Use this template to show the error pages, and that is what is the meaning of saying error page. So if there is an error in this page, do not show the message from this page. Go to that page and show the message in a beautiful way. That is what is the meaning. The next one is error page. Is you are telling the compiler that this page is an error page. It's not the original pages. This page has to be shown only if there is an error in some other pages. So that is what is the meaning of saying is error page is true. This is an error page. It's not something that has to be shown during the normal execution. What difference will it make for this page? What is the difference that you get? You get that exception object. Usually, on an ordinary pages, you don't see that exception page. Okay? Here you get, if you say this is an error page, you get that exception object. What's the advantage of that exception object? You can query that exception object to find out what type of error has occurred and so on. The list can be obtained from there. Okay. So let's look at the next one. Okay. The next one is the content type. Okay. You are already familiar. Content type is text plain. What's the meaning of saying text plain? What does that mean? Content type is text plain. It's a text page. Treat it like a plain ordinary text. If you say text HTML, what's the meaning of it? It's a text page. Treat it like a HTML page. So this is the content type. It's also called as MIME type. What is the full form of MIME? Multipurpose internet. Yes. Mail extension. Multipurpose internet mail extension. Okay. You must know that MIME because it can be asked even in the interviews. What is MIME? MIME type. That's required. It is not the full form. Why it is used? Learn on your own. I'm not going to tell you. So we have language is Java in most of the case. You don't find that word, and if you don't use that word, it is also interpreted that it's Java. It's not going to change. Okay. Content type is something. You can also use the encoding that is being used and an import statement. Let's go to the default values. So let's look at what you get here. Is session is true. This is the default answer. By default, you have a session. If you don't want, you can override it. Okay. Buffer. The default size of the buffer is 8 KB, and some of you are going to lose 1 mark for not remembering what is the default size of the page buffer. It's 8 KB. It can be asked for MCQs. What's the default size of the buffer? Is 8 KB. Okay, that's the default. Whether you say it or not, it's going to store for 8 KB. Auto flush is what is the meaning of saying auto flush? Auto flush means when the buffer is full, is it going to flush the buffer automatically, or do you expect it to raise an exception and then you take care of it? Now you may find that, okay, why these things are required? These are required if you are streaming a video or audio or anything. In that case, you have to handle the buffer on your own. If it's a real-time information that you are providing, like a streaming information, then this buffer and auto flush will come into picture. If you are writing an ordinary HTML kind of page wherein you ask the user to enter username, password, or register for the course and other things, this will not make much of a difference. So we usually don't use it. EL is expression language. We will spend more time on that expression language in the later class. By default, it is true. It will ignore the expression language. Don't worry about that. By EL, we will get to know more about it. The include directives help you to include a additional page into the current page. Now, what's the meaning of that? Now, you have visited most of these sites, and most of these sites have the same template. So, for example, if you go to the Microsoft site or any other site, those sites will have, there is going to be a title at the top, and there is going to be some navigation here with small buttons or some things. Okay. And this is the area wherein the contents are changing. So these are static. It's there for every page. You see it on every page. The same menu bar and all the details. Now, what you can do is you can create a separate page, a static page like this, and include them in all the other dynamic pages. So instead of going to every page and then copy pasting it, just create these either the navigation bar or these headings, side heading and other things, keep them separate, and then use this include directives to directly include them in your page. And that's the use of having the include. So I can say include and specify the path of the HTML or path of the JSP page that need to be included. It's a static inclusion. What's the meaning of saying static inclusion? When the page is translated into an equivalent servlet, during that time it will include that page. So if you have this include statement, and say you have your main page, and let's say you have the inclusion page, and you have included it in the main page. Now you know very well this is a JSP page. After a JSP page on its own can't run. It has to be translated into its equivalent servlet. During this time, it will read the content of this page and make the equivalent servlet. Now, what is the disadvantage of this? The disadvantage is, after this, once this servlet is created, after this, if you change the inclusion page, that's the navigation bar or anything, the one that is getting included, if you change this, nothing is going to happen. So new changes will not be shown in the servlet. If you make changes to this page also, then it will include it. So if the main page is not changed, but if the inclusion, that is the sub page, is changing, in the static inclusion, the changes in the included pages will not be highlighted. So it won't show it, because only during the translation, remember this page is getting translated only if you make some changes to this page and it's going to be reparsed and retranslated into the servlet. If you are doing changes to the other one, it will not do it. So that is called as static. So only during the translation. What could be dynamic? Dynamic is when the page is requested. When the request is made, it goes and fetches the included page. That is dynamic. There is two ways in which you can do it. What do I mean by saying, what is the meaning of saying dynamic? Now you have the original page and you have, say, the included page. Okay. During the translation into this page, that is during the translation into this servlet, this page is included, no doubt. But whenever somebody makes a request, this page is again revisited and if it has modified, that modified information will also come there. So per request, whenever somebody makes a request, it goes to that page, makes the changes. If it has modified, then does it. That is dynamic inclusion. So for every request, it is doing it. Okay, so that is what's the meaning. When do we use it? We usually use it to show. This directive is used to show a constant message that has to be shown on every page. For example, license of agreement or privacy, copyright information. If you want to show it on every page, which is not going to change. Copyright informations are not changing very often. You can include them, or navigation bars. The main navigations will not change. You can include them. We will see them in action in the lab if the time permits. The next one is the actions. The word itself says they behave, they control the behavior. So you can, one of the action is dynamically include a page, forward the request, reuse the existing component. Okay. You can dynamically include a page, forward the request to other page. What's the meaning of saying forward the request to the other page? Let's say you have a page. User makes a request to this page and you start processing. Usually what happens is the output of this page is sent back to the other user. But when it comes to the forwarding the user request, the user makes a request to this page, it does half the work, and then whatever the request that the user has made, it sends that request to some other page. So the request is now sent to some other page. That is forwarding. The user request, you take it, you find that I can handle it, give it to the other page. User is not making the request, it is done internally within the server. So you are going to one page, internally your request is sent to some other page, and that processes the request and gives it to you. So it's like if you say I want to view my marks in the last semester, you go and request, say I want that marks.jsp. Marks.jsp gets your request and suddenly finds that you have not logged in. So what it does is your request is given to the login page. Then the login page comes and says login first, then I will show you the marks. That is what is the meaning of saying forwarding the request. So you get the request for one page. The page says that it can't do something anything with your page, or the page feels that some other page is appropriate for handling it. Again, it is not automatic. There is no magic. As a developer, you have to write the code for forwarding it. Anytime you can do that forwarding. Okay. So we will see them in the other one. The actions are usually written in JSP include. I won't go in depth into it. Some of you may be wondering why no examples are shown. Is you are supposed to know this in the previous semester. This is again not part of your semester. Okay, so this is the last semester's work that is being shown to you. You can include it, you can forward it, you can call a plugin. For example, if you have a plugin for Acrobat, what is that? Adobe Flash or any kind of plugins, you are already familiar. What's the meaning of saying plugin? Okay. To show the animation, you need a what is that? Adobe call it as a Flash plugin. Sometimes it says you don't have the plugin to watch this video. Download the plugin and so on. You get that. That's what is the meaning of saying plugin. It downloads a plugin and gives. If you are supplying a parameter, for example, if you are already familiar, you have created the applets and you can supply the parameter. Have you done that thing? Have you supplied a parameter to an applet? Yes or no? Or I don't know what you are talking. Yes, some of them said yes. Passing the parameters, you can do it using that. Okay. We don't usually use the applet. We use the bean. Bean is a special type of object. More about that bean in the appropriate class. Again, we have the setter and getter method that we can think of using. Now I will switch to not this one, to the one, because we don't have a lot of time to play around with them. We have other things that need to be done. This is the starting of your syllabus. So your syllabus are starting from here. And how do we, or what do we do in the current syllabus? So this is your syllabus. The first one is the tag-like directive. I'm continuing with the directives. That is the tag-like directive. You found that, okay, it is well and good if I write the Java in between, it's good. For a small piece of logic, adding Java directly into an HTML page is a good solution. But if you have to do in real life, you will have to do that thing. You may have to include lot of Java and lot of HTML in your page. So when you include lots and lot of Java and HTML, what will happen is the page has one piece Java, other piece HTML, third piece JavaScript, and so on. It's going to clutter your page, and anybody who is looking at the page will definitely get confused with what is going on. And sometimes what happens is you by mistakenly you delete one closing flower bracket, and then onwards the entire page will just stop executing because the Java just says that this function is not closed, the flower bracket is not there, the semicolon is not there, and you are in a big mess because you have combined both Java and HTML together, and both of them are appearing in one place. So it's going to, if not today, it will confuse you later. Now that happens when you are going for a real life solution. What is the solution for this? Solution for this is we want Java because we know that Java is a powerful language. But at the same time, we don't want to clutter our page with the Java. So what they said is, in that case, what you can do is, the Java that you want to include, keep them separate from the page. So don't mix Java and HTML together. You take that Java part, keep it separate, and wherever the Java is required, wherever the functions or functionalities are required, make a reference to those actual Java code. What's the advantage? You have a page that at least looks like a HTML. It's not really an HTML, it looks like an HTML. And you have a page that is, or you have a source file that is exactly Java. So the Java is one place, the HTML is on the other page. Whenever you have to refer to some Java code, you make a reference marker to the appropriate Java code. So tomorrow if you have to debug the Java code, come to the Java code, make the changes. If you have to make changes to the HTML page, go there and make changes because both of them are kept separate. And this is the idea of tag-lib directives. Okay. What is tag-lib directive? Is to create your own custom tags. How Java has provided you with some tags. I have just shown you a few tags like JSP, include JSP, and other things. There are built-in tags are available. If you want, you can create your own tags. And this is what we are not going to see as of now. Later we will come back to it. And that is what is the directives. So how do I go about creating a directive? To create a directive, we have to go for to create your own tag. What you are supposed to do is, first of all, you have to go and write a Java class. That's it. The Java part that you wanted to embed and which is going to clutter, you write it separately in one page. This is your HTML JSP page. Make the reference to the Java, not by adding the Java directly into your code. So if you add the Java directly into your code, then again it becomes a mess. You have a Java and you said that this is separate, and again Java and both of them are coming together, and it's not going to work. So to activate the functions which are here within your Java, what you need to do is you have to write something that looks like a HTML. Look at the tags. This is an HTML tag. You write like an HTML tag. This is not a Java. Nobody will say that that's a Java because it looks like HTML, but it is not HTML. It looks like HTML. But it is alright because it is a scripting. So you're just writing a small piece of script there. Okay. But what has to be done? this piece is, or this piece has to be mapped somewhere within your class. So you have a Java here, you have a script here, somewhere you have to combine them together. How do you combine them? For that, you create one more file called as tag library descriptive. This is a XML file that maps the tags from the HTML to the appropriate function of the Java. So you have a separate file, it maps together. In your databases, you have seen when you have many to many relationship, you can't directly build that in on a table. You create one more table in between. You take one foreign key to this side, one foreign key to this side, and create a separate table. Similar type of thing. So what is usually done is you want a JSP that looks like a ordinary HTML. You want to write the Java also, and you want to keep that Java separately. You can't mix them together because it's going to mess up the things. So you take one more file which will map your HTML part with the your tags with the HTML. So how do I do that? First of all, we need a directive, and the directive is, remember, this is at symbol, percentage at. You have a separate tag for this or separate directive for this, and that is the tag link. How we have at page here in your JSP, how you have at page here, you are going to use percentage at tag link. So this is a tag that you are using to specify that there is a tag library. Now, which is this tag library? This is not the Java page. It is that middle page that is clubbing your HTML with the Java page. So it's a reference to this page. So what is there in the tag library? You are saying that there is a XML page that has the mapping. So you are telling the container that I'm going to use a separate tag which looks like an HTML tag, but it is not an HTML tag. It's something that is different from the HTML tag. If you don't understand what is that tag, and if you want to really know what does that tag means, go to this page. This page will not tell you what is it, but this page will guide you to a Java file that has the description of that tag. So for example, I am telling the compiler or the container that I'm going to use a word advice, and you know very well in the HTML there is no tag called as advice. So when during the parsing it gives the word advice, what is the meaning of that advice? I have not heard anything called advice in the entire HTML world. So then the compiler will get confused. In that case, what you are saying to the compiler, you get that word advice, you didn't get what is the meaning of it, go to this page, TLD, go to this page, and somewhere I will tell you where to find that advice. So I will tell you where to locate the actual script behind that word advice. That is what is being made here. So when some new your own tag, that's called as custom tags, you can generate your own tag, and if you start developing each and everything on your own, compiler will get confused. So how to avoid that thing? You just tell the compiler, I'm going to use this word. Whenever you encounter this word, go to a specific Java file and get that JavaScript and read whatever the Java, which is Java, when I say Java, the Java file or Java program, get the appropriate function. So that this is the mapping between your JSP and the Java file. Now, how is it written? The page is slightly written in a very different way. First of all, I can't just write advice here. Now, I may want to show a ordinary banner, a header on top of every page. So I can't think of using a tag that may look like head. So you may tempted to use that. I want to show a heading, then I will use the tag head. But the problem is the head is already used up. When you say head, HTML, in the world of HTML, head means head and body is there. So yeah, I want to use that word head, but I can't use it because it's already used there. So what I am going to do, I will not write it like a head. I will say that because I started, so I'm going to use my name, the starting word of my name. I'm going to say this m:\head. So this is a prefix that I'm adding. So it's mine. You can use S, you can use K, you can use P, or you can use A, B, C, D, anything. You are adding a prefix in front of it. Why do you add a prefix in front of it? So that the HTML world will not get confused. For example, in your HTML word, already in caps lock, again in caps lock, you write like this. In HTML word, what does this mean? What does that mean? It means a table that has rows and columns. Yes. For a carpenter, what is this? What does that mean? For a carpenter, table means something that has 4 legs and one. That is true. You can't, just because you are a web developer, you can't say my table is better than your declaration. He says that is my table. I want to use like that table. So, but you can't use it. If he tries to type a table with the legs equal to 4, then the parser will stop and say, where is the row now? And you say, what do you mean by saying row? Okay, so how to avoid this problem? In that case, when the carpenter comes and says, I want to write it like a table, you can just say that table word is used up. What you can do, because you are a carpenter, you write it like this. See table. So this means it is the carpenter's table. Okay, simple as that. You prefix. Okay. In the company, we have different departments. We have sales department, we have service department, we have many. Every department has its own way of tracking its customer. For sales department, customer is one type of tax, customer name, address, how much money they can pay, and other things. For service department, customer name, address is there. Which model or which products they have taken, how much they can pay is they not their problem. So declaration or the definitions are different. Customer is customer. So how do I say that this is the sales department customer, this is the service department customer? Ask them to provide their own specific prefixes. So will it solve the problem? So if you add a prefix directly, will it solve the problem? It may not solve the problem. Why? After some time, you will have again clashes between the two people. Why? They will say that I used the C before. Before you joined the Emmet, I was using C. You can't use the prefix C. Then the problem comes again, you are back to square one. You started, you said the table was used, so you use C colon table. After some time, other person say, I want to use the same like C colon and table, but I want it to be this different something else. Chemistry department may come and say that I want to use the C table, but that is a periodic table. It's not the carpenter's table. So I want to use it. So chemistry was there before the carpenter. So what you will do there? Then there is a problem with this prefix. So how to avoid this problem? One way of avoiding this problem is associating this prefix with something that is unique. So associate that prefix with something that is unique. What is something that is unique? In our world, what is something that is unique? You know very well, every URL, what is URL? Address, the web address. Every URL is unique. You don't have, if you say google.com, it will go to one place. You can't have google.com early morning means it is this side, evening on the other side. It's a unique. Okay. So what we do is we associate this prefix with the URL so that they are unique. Okay. Again, will that solve the problem? Now, it may again create a conflict. But what we say is, if you are working for a company abc.com, you create a prefix like this: abc.com sales department. Within your company, you see to that the URL is unique. Remember, no other company can have the same name. You know very well. You can't have two companies with the same URL. I will write like www or something. So this is a unique way of doing it. We are mapping the prefix, and this is all from the XML word. It's not from our word. Let's come back to the technique. So in order to use our tags, what is that we are supposed to do? We are supposed to use a prefix. It could be 1 letter, it could be 2 letter, it could be 10 letter. If you are good in typing, you can even type 256 character as your prefix. That's up to you. Okay, nobody is restricting from doing that. Okay, but you have a prefix, and you create your custom tags. Prefix colon your custom tag. So whenever this prefix is encountered by the parser, what you are telling the parser is, go to the TLD. So this is the mapping file. So for this prefix, for example for mine prefix, there is a mapping file. So whenever you encounter mine colon something, don't come to me, go to this file that has the mapping for the Java. So that is what you are saying. So this is how it goes. Whenever it encounters mine, it checks the prefix. Mine means random things to this file. So it comes to this file, random things. But after mine, there is a word advice. So it goes here, then checks for the name. After this prefix, what came? Remember, you can change the prefix. If you change the prefix, the same prefix has to be used. The next thing is advice. So it searches for the word that is coming after here, advice. Then what is written? For this is your mapping file that maps your file with the Java file. Now this file has to map you to the Java file. So it says advice means go to a package called as foo. Inside that you have a class called as advisor. So go to that package and you get a class called as advisor tag handler dot class. You're going to get that class there. So this, go to the class. In that class, call a method. There is usually a specific method, do tag. It's a method that it is usually calling. Automatically it will call that do tag. But I am supplying some parameters here called as user. What I am supposed to do with that thing? If I am supplying a parameter user, it is mapped to the set user. So whatever you use. So if you say register number, it will be mapped to set register number. You are already familiar with the getters and setters. So whenever you say key equal to value, it will go to the appropriate set method and assign the values to that. So this is the mapping that is usually being done. Okay. So what is the tag handler? What is the meaning of saying tag handler? Tag handler is a ordinary Java class. That's all. But some methods are there. There are some restrictions. It has to be extended out, because if you just say it's just an ordinary Java class, then everybody will start writing their own Java class and it's going to be a mess. Again, there must be certain restrictions, some rules, some behavior that is required, and there will be some interfaces that has to be used. Okay, this is the way in which the container handles the special tags that you are writing. Okay, so this is a sample Java class, advisor tag handler. It extends out of simple tag support. This is, again, you know very well, I just told you. If you ask anybody to write any Java class, anybody will write, people will start writing their own Java class, then there will be a problem. Which method to be called, which method not to be called, and so on. So they have put some restriction on that, and that restriction comes because of the extension. So you cannot simply say that I have written a employee class called employee and it is a tag handler. There must be some specific method, some behavior must be there, and if you want to get it, either you can go for the interface of the tag handler and then implement, or extend out of an existing built-in class. This is the method that is always called, do tag is called, and in the do tag you are supposed to write your logic. If you have any getters and setters which are required, for example, I want to know who is the user, I want to greet the user with hello world, or I want to greet the user with something, I want the name of the user, how do I get the name of the user? I am not supplying anything to this tag, I am supposed to supply it to the set method. Okay, so this is how it goes. We will not be creating this tags initially, but we will be using some of the tags which are used in the built-in libraries. So first we will start using the libraries. The tags which are not part of JSP but which are already created by the experts, we are going to use them, and later we will venture in creating the tags on our own. As usual, I have already told you, if you want to call your class as a tag handler, it must extend out of a interface called as javax servlet JSP dot tag text dot tag. There is an interface and you have to implement it. Why do we require an interface? So that everybody's tag handler looks exactly the same, except for the real code. So the skeleton has to be same. So if you say a human being, the skeleton must be same. How do you do it? Human beings has to be extended out of a class that implements the tag, or the human being himself or herself must have implemented this particular interface called as a human. Okay, so let's come to the real world and real fun, and that is how to use our own tag libraries. I will come to that, and that is, if you want to use your own tag, you have to write the tag and take the pain. But first we will use the freely available libraries, and then we venture into creating something on our own. How do I get the additional tags? To get the additional tags, we have to import a library called as JSPL. And what's the full form of the JSPL is Java Server Pages Standard Tag Libraries. Okay, JSP is Java Server Pages Standard Tag Libraries. These are the tag libraries. Remember, they are not part of the original JSP specification. They are the additional tags which are supplied with a separate library. So you have to have the library in order to use those tags. What are they doing? They contains a collection of some useful tags. So already built-in codes are there. For example, while loop, for loop, all those codes are already created for you. The tags are already created. You can directly make use of them. So what you get? You can get an extension to the JSP by introducing new tags, which are usually based on the library. There are 4 tags are there. We'll see them later. When do we use it? If you want to process an XML, if you want to have the conditional execution or internationalization, what is the meaning of saying making it as internationalized paper or page is to have their country specific information. For example, every country has its own currency, its own unit of measurement. For example, in India we use the MKS system, meters, kilometers and second. In British people use pound. Okay, so their measurement is different. Some people use inches. Okay, so the way in which you write the date is different from the way in which the date is written in United States, and if you go to some other countries, they may write it on their own. Okay, so this is the problem that you encounter when you have the information that has to be given across the world. Okay, so where do I get the JSTL tag? We will have to download them from the specific location. So it is not part of the JSP. It's a separate spec. Where do I get it? Who started it? It was started by the Java community. Actually, Java is built not by one company. It's actually a community effort that is building up this language. If you want to know more about it, you can go to jcp.org. It's a community that has a lot of GSRs inside it, and its implementation is actually given by the one of the project called as Jakarta. This is part of Apache. Okay, I won't go again. I won't show you the history and some colorful pictures there. It's not really required. What we have as of now is we have the specification of JSP 1.2, 2.0, 2.1. After 2.1, the specifications have not gone because there are something else came after this, and that is the frameworks. Okay. The version 1 was released in 2002, 1.1, 2004, and 2006 was the version 1.2, and it goes on. I won't show you. Okay. How do I get the tags? So let's go to the NetBeans, and if I want to get the tags, what I'm supposed to do? I will have to include those files. So I will go to my project, and you have a piece called as a libraries here. You need to include those standard tags. It's not part of your application. You have to include them. Okay. So here, if you click on it, by now you have only the libraries for JDK as well as for the Glassfish. It's only included here. If you want to include additional libraries, right click on it and say I want to add additional libraries. Okay. So add libraries. When you try to click on add libraries, you get a lot of libraries that can be included. Okay. And the one that is shipped with the NetBeans is 1.1. So I'm going to say you showed me 1.2, 2. And so on. Where are those two and others? If you want, you have to download on your own. But these are the standard tags. Okay. Additionals are enhancement to the standard tags, so it doesn't make a difference. Just click on add. That's it. It's going to add the tag for you. There are two tags are there. One is this JSTL and the other one is the standard tags. Okay. These are the class files. For example, if I go to the core, you get some class there. Okay. If you double click on it, it may cross compile it and give you. It's going to give you a class with the details. Some details are there. Don't worry about all the details because it is written by expert. It may not be so easy to read and understand, but some classes are there. So you have to include them. What you have done is you have just told your project that I'm giving you additional library. That does not mean that the JSP will automatically get everything. For the JSP, so in the JSP part, get rid of this. I've included in the JSP, you have to specify at tag 11, and it says something is coming in red color. It's an indication by the NetBeans that this attribute is required. If at all you are using, you can't ignore it. It's like a required field. Specify a prefix. Then, if you are writing your own tags, specify the directory where you have the tag. But I got it from somebody else, then I can go for the URI. Which is the URI? URI is you don't have to do anything. You can use control space, and I'm going to use, there are a lot of URLs there. I'm going to use JSP JSTL code. So this is the one URI that I'm going to use. JSP JSTL code. Double click on it and you got it. So now what you got with this? With this, what you get is whenever my prefix was C, whenever I put C, you find that there are additional tags are available. Okay, you can say out and you can say value, and if you say hello, you will end up in trouble. So and I close. So it is not a Java. I'm going to get rid of this part. So I just got a tag. It looks like a tag, but internally, what is this tag is doing is it is writing that out dot print line. So instead of you writing cluttering the page with out dot or print line or whatever it is, and then say hello, instead of doing that, this is Java. Look at the difference. This is Java, which is a bit confusing, and the other one looks like a ordinary script, and that is the beauty of it. I can have a for loop. So you may say that okay, it doesn't make any much difference. What if I have a big lengthy for loop, or what if I have to connect to a database? Then I will, if it is a Java, then I have to say for class for name and all those things. All the details will come. But that is the try catch statement, the import statement, everything is there on a separate page. You have only a simple looking page. So if you run this, you will end up in trouble. But so how it goes? Okay. Then you have to notice this is the page. We got the second hello because of this. Okay, so it is as simple as that. There is a built-in out.print line, but it is there on a separate page. Okay, so let's look at the tag libraries. So this is part of your syllabus now. So from here we are starting. So what are the different tag libraries that are supported, which are available? Altogether, we have the 5 tags. These are the libraries. Remember, these are not the only tags. Inside that, you get a lot of them. For example, C is not just the one. C out is not the only one. If you put C and get all of them out, otherwise import for if all the core functionalities are available. Okay. So we have one of them was the core. Let's look at the other one. So we have a core tag, we have formatting tags, we have SQL, we have XML tag, and we have some built-in JSTL functions. What are core tags? The core tags are essential for every application. They are fundamental things. For example, the if statement, the switch statement, even though we don't have a direct switch statement, but switch like statement, the looping structures, which is there for almost everything. The core functionalities are available with this. Formatting is used for formatting the text. If you want the text, if you want to show the result with the 2 decimal places like 500.00, you want to precisely show, format the text, or format the date in DD, MM, YY format, or YY, DD, some other format. Okay, you can do that thing. This is formatting. Again, we can show it in the international format using the second one. The third one is the database tag libraries. Database, as usual, it helps you to interact with the database. So you can connect to the database easily by not writing any Java. You can connect to a database, retry the value from the database, and run a query against the database. Again, everything using HTML-like syntax, not using the Java syntax. Okay, so the Java is there, hidden behind some other files. XML, I think this word is coming again and again, and those who are not familiar, please go through a book on XML. Don't take a very thick book, take a very thin book and just go through it. If someone, I don't remember, one book is there, very thin book, XML, you can easily get a lot of information on XML. Okay. So if you want to interact with an XML file which is almost very certain that you are going to do it, you can go for the XML tags. JSTL functions are some common manipulation functions which you can think of using. Okay, so I've already told you how do I use the JSTL. In order to use the JSTL, we have to go for a directive called as taglib. Start with @taglib. Write a prefix. Prefix is a must. You have to write a prefix. The word or the letter will not make much difference. But these letters are actually standardized. That's why most of the people are using standard letters. Followed by the URL. And the URL is, always remember, if you change the URL, you'll get something else. Okay, URL is java.sun.com/JSP JSTL core for the core libraries. If you want something else, you will get some others. So these are the prefixes. Remember, it is not required that you are supposed to use the same prefix. You can change it, but if you try to do it, you will be the only one person on earth who will be using the other prefixes. So most 100% of the other developers are using the same prefix. They are standardized, but it is not a must. Everybody can change it, but everybody tries to follow the same thing. Okay, it's just a rule. We have the core, the prefix is C. XML, the prefix is X. Internationalization I18N for the internationalization. FMT, formatting. Database access, the prefix given is SQL. Functions, the prefix given as FN. This is the general prefix that is followed worldwide. And the URI, you can't change the URI. You can change the prefix, but this can't be changed. URI is for the core, it is JSP. Remember, this is JSP JSTL core. You get JSF core or JSTL direct core. Just show you, there are many people who will end up in trouble by changing the URL. Now, if you select something else, for example, if I just select the JSTL, there is a JSTL core. Okay, I selected JSTL core, not the JSP JSTL core. There is a difference. This is JSP JSTL core. If I try to do this, what will happen is I will get a different set of things. Okay, which are not part of it. Okay. Most of them appear same, but some of the things will change. Some of you will end up in trouble because you select a very different code. So do not try to mix the URI. The functionalities will change automatically. Okay. So let's go here and let's look at the one. XML, we have JST XML, FMT, SQL, and functions. So if you have used the prefix as C with the JSTL core, how do I use it? C colon followed by the function that you want to use it, and then specify an expression. Okay, that's the syntax that you need to follow. You can have more than one key value pair. So this is the in full. I've shown this to you. You are writing the URI, you are writing the prefix, and you are calling something. You notice here there is a for loop and there is the value that are being